And Dad always kind of had that, I love my father, but he wanted to be the king of everything. He wanted to be the center of attention. He wanted all the notoriety. So yeah, if anybody in the family started getting any kind of, you're starting to get attention, he would kind of derail it.
Really?
Yeah,
even if that were with you, most parents, they rejoice in their children doing well or
he did later. He did later on because my sister, he was very proud of her work in the music business. And he was very proud of, probably the proudest he was of me was whenever I joined Phil Valentine's show.
Oh, yeah.
He loved that show.
Yeah, that's nice.
And he would always tell me, man, you had a lot to that show. He's doing a great job.
Welcome to a podcast about music and entertainment. Before it all goes down the disposal, this is Circling the Drain.
Welcome on into Circling the Drain. And if you're wondering, wait a minute, things are happening out of sync here. Well, we've actually decided to kind of mix things up a little bit. I'm Jay Harper, one of the happy co-hosts here of Circling the Drain. And of course, you know and love Johnny B, who is also here. Yes, fear not, Johnny is here.
Yes, I am. Johnny Bozeman.
Yes,
it's
John E. Bozeman. What does the E stand for? I've never asked you that.
Well, I used to hate it, but now I don't mind it. Ernest.
Yeah?
Well, there you go.
John Ernest.
Jeb. J-E-B.
Yeah, Jeb. Yeah, J-E-B, baby.
Did anybody ever call you Jeb? Did anybody try to call you Jeb?
Well, if they did, they didn't live long.
And of course, with Johnny B, we also have our the brains of the outfit. We talked about it before. Out of three people, we needed at least one brain, and Jim is that brain.
But we're in trouble if that's the case.
He's our Gene Simmons.
Yeah, and that's not the female actress Gene Simmons.
No.
We're talking the Kiss Gene Simmons,
yes.
with better makeup.
Better makeup and a tongue about the half the size, I guess. Blah 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 blah.
And you're faithful to your wife.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear about Gene Simmons as like a big flirt. I saw some articles about him flirting every time he's a guest for some female host. That he's always flirting with.
Oh, he always is, yeah. Of course, that comes when you've slept with, 4,000 women?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
He's fathered a few children.
Yes, he has.
Well, we had been speaking, the three of us, about a variety of different topics here on Circling the Drain. And we kind of, in the midst of some of our conversations, we talk about songs and music and entertainment, radio. That's kind of the emphasis of what we discuss around here.
Right.
But we had also came upon the thought that, there are a whole host of songs about mama and paying tribute to mothers and wives and things, and all, certainly well-deserved. But what about dads?
Yeah.
There are songs that pay tribute to fathers. It does not seem as though there are, at least a number of them to the degree about the women and moms in our lives.
Well, right.
But, dads, good grief. I know we all had fathers that the three of us, we had fathers, and we've talked about it, that, certainly were, major influences in our lives. And you may say, well, gosh, isn't that the case for everybody? Well, no, it's not. Sadly, there are a lot of families where the fathers aren't around for whatever reason.
Right.
But our dads were there and included us in their lives as best they could. But, when it comes to songs about dads, though, are there any, Johnny, that kind of resonate with you that come to mind?
Well, the first one that did, when you said that, I'm thinking, well, there's Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin, but it's about a dad that's never there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Because he's working.
Yeah, he's working. He's
That's
trying
right.
to.
But what a poignant song, though.
Oh, it was. It really hit you.
And it goes back to one of our early podcasts, about the story songs.
Yes.
And, it does seem that most of the songs out there that do mention fathers or dads are story songs.
They are. Very much so. Well, I was just thinking of another one was, and it wasn't really a single, but Waylon Jennings had a great one called Between Fathers and Sons. Great song, and talked about the relationship with dad and son. And if you ever get a chance, listen to it.
Yeah, and there's also one that comes to mind for me. It was an Elton John song, and I actually shared it with Jim. I may have shared it with both of you guys. That was on his album, the album entitled The One. And it's the last song on the album. And in essence, it is about a young man who is dying of AIDS. And his father had disowned him because of the fact that it's intimated that he was gay.
Yeah.
And he is on his deathbed, and his father finally comes to see him, and they make amends. And
wow.
It's a song that will it gets you misty. I defy you.
Feels.
Yeah, I defy you not to get misty over this. It's powerful. Bernie Taupin's lyrics, man.
Oh, what a great writer.
But then you've got the Living Years, Mike and the Mechanics,
Yes.
Love Without End, Amen, the George Strait song, and Holly Dunn, right?
Yeah, my Daddy's Hands.
Right. And of course, sadly, Holly no longer with us. She passed from ovarian cancer a number of years ago. Sad story.
Wow.
Yeah, but then Conway Twitty, That's My Job. I mean,
Yes.
there are songs out there that pay homage to Dad.
Yeah.
And but again, the influences that fathers had on our lives. I mean, we can get into some of those kind of personal stories about our fathers. I mean, for Johnny, for you, I mean, your dad was so instrumental in your life in terms of he introduced you to your career for the last 40 some odd years.
He introduced me to radio. He also introduced me to country music. It was because of my father. He was not only a radio station owner, but he also began his career as a singer. Country. In fact, both of my parents sang country music. And they did it on radio and record. In fact, my dad had records out, so did my mother. But Dad introduced me to both. And it was from watching Dad. In fact, earlier podcast we had, Matt Murphy talked about his father. That's what influenced Matt to become a radio guy, is watching his father. And it was the same with me. I would go to my dad's station, because my dad broke ground on his very first station he owned the day I was born, which was July 4th.
Yeah, wow.
And but when I would go in, Dad had this noontime show where he had his band and my mother sang on it. And I would be over here in the corner just kind of watching everything. But the more I watched how much fun these guys had and what their lives were like, I wanted to do that.
All right. So it was not anything you felt, quote unquote, forced into?
No. I wanted more so to be in music. That's the way I was going. But Dad, for some reason, Dad never thought being an artist would be worth anything. He said, no, son, he said, you want to be in radio. He really wanted me to be a salesman. I never did pick up on that, which I would have. I wish I would have, but I got more into being a personality, being basically a performing flea.
Well, there was a time, and I remember this when I was a little kid in Victoria, Texas, the local AM station there, KNAL Radio, Canal Country Radio. A lot of those guys that were on the air, they were also singers.
Yes.
They had records and they promoted themselves. They appeared at local, barn dances and all that kind of stuff. So there was a time when that was a thing. And I'm guessing that was the case with your dad, right?
Well, it was. And Dad also had the foresight, because he moved to Kansas. This was like in the 50s. Dad and the whole family moved to Kansas before I was born. And Dad had this great idea, and it turned out to be, it was a moneymaker for him. But the Midwest in those days, they didn't get what they get today, a lot of shows where country artists come into, like say Salina, Kansas.
Right. They weren't on the touring loop there at all.
Kansas was basically left off. A lot of these places were. So Dad would book people like Roy Clark or, Hank Thompson, anybody like that.
A 6-pack to go.
Yeah. Well, I got a great story on Hank Thompson.
Hank Thompson.
But Dad would have those guys be the headliners. Then he'd have his troupe, which was people that worked at the station that knew how to sing, and they would open up the show. I mean, it'd be a variety of acts, and Mom was one of them. But and Dad was so good at selling. I mean, even on stage, he would do this bit with kids. He would bring a kid on, and usually be a little girl sitting on his lap, and he would sing a song with her and to her. The crowd would fall in love with it,
of course.
And as he got done, he said, I've learned that girls prefer greenbacks to blue eyes. And he would give her a little money for being on stage, and the crowd would just eat it up, love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dad, but that was so smart because he used his radio station to bring these artists in, and it would plug the station. All these people would come from all over the state. I mean, there'd be huge crowds because they did not get that kind of entertainment. It's very, very smart thinking on his part.
So what kind of venues would be used for these radio appreciation shows, for lack of a better term?
Well, it'd be all kinds of places. Sometimes it would be rodeos. A lot of time rodeos, because that's the first time I ever got my butt kicked. Was come a couple of rodeo kids,
Okay.
But he would be in rodeos or schoolhouses, auditoriums, other auditoriums, sometimes outside. In fact, back in 1974, he had this huge show. It was out in the middle of Great Bend, Kansas. They pulled over 70,000 people to see Roy Clark and Dad's opening acts. And this was time when Willie Nelson was doing his Dripping Springs reunions, when Willie was starting his picnics. And Dad had the same size crowd, but he didn't have the number of acts that Willie did. Willie had all kinds of people. Dad had one star, Roy Clark.
Well, back then, Roy was he was
huge.
He was a freight train, man.
Well, and it was Hee-Haw. Hee-Haw had just started at that time.
Because I remember 71, 72, Roy Clark, Yesterday When I Was Young was, had hit and done well. So, yeah, there in the early 70s, Roy Clark was really flying high. Now, did your dad get to know Roy Clark because of booking him, or did he have a relationship prior to that?
He had a prior to that. In fact, Roy worked for Dad at one time and played guitar. And it wasn't only Roy. Dad had a very close relationship with Jimmy Dean, the singer Sausage King. And in fact, Roy actually went to work with Jimmy Dean because of Dad. And Roy got kicked off the Jimmy Dean show because Roy was stealing Jimmy's jokes and using them on stage. And plus he was constantly tardy. He was bad about.
Yeah, I heard he was not the most punctual.
No, not at those days. But yeah, Dad knew a lot of country artists. In fact, my sister told me that when Hawkshaw Hawkins died, his wife was at our house, and she got the call that he had passed away in that plane crash with Patsy Cline.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. As a tangent, I worked with, when I was at MCA, one of my associates, another regional record rep there, was a guy named Larry Hughes. His father was Randy Hughes, who was the pilot of that plane. And Larry spoke of, he was a little kid when that happened, and he remembers the police showing up at the front door to tell them of the crash.
My dad told me, and I don't know how true this is, but he said that was such a tragic happening. He said, really, they did not need to fly back that early. He said, because the weather was horrible. I guess the Randy Hughes, the pilot, was an instrument.
Yeah, I don't know those details, but
I don't either. But from what Dad told me, he thought his wife was cheating on him, and that's why he was trying to hurry back. And
well, I know this happened at night. And
Yes.
Randy Hughes was actually, if I'm not mistaken, was Patsy Cline's manager as well.
I think so.
Yeah. So,
And Patsy Cline, a lot of people didn't know this, but Patsy Cline was supposed to, Dottie West and her husband had offered to drive Patsy back to Nashville. And she said, no, I got to get back because Charlie Dick was complaining that, that he was having to take care of the kids and he wanted her back, faster than that. Right. So, yeah.
Well, it's really interesting that you have such a behind the scenes viewing of the things that went on back when radio and artists had a special relationship that is no longer there to the degree that it once was.
No, it really isn't. It's changed. But yeah, Dad really got me into country music. And I remember when I started doing country music, I was kind of cocky with Dad because he said, if you really think you know a lot about country music, he said, tell me about an artist. He said, name one artist that I might know of from the past. And I brought up Elton Britt. And Dad,
yeah, like, huh?
How do you know Elton Britt? I said, because I've done my research. Well, he was kind of impressed by that.
Yeah. I know I was introduced to country music at a very early age by my dad. I mean, my dad was not in the music business, far from it. He was a machinist as a young man and ultimately became plant manager of petrochemical plants all over the world.
Yeah.
In Venezuela, the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, all kinds of places. But, growing up again, I mentioned that small little AM radio station in Victoria, Texas, KML radio. I think it was 1410 on the dial. But back when AM radio was still king, I don't even think there was an FM station in Victoria at the time there in the early 60s.
Oh, yeah.
But that's all we would listen to where the country radio, was country radio, country music. And my dad had he had 78s of Hank Williams Sr., on MGM Records and George Jones albums and that kind of thing. So, I grew up listening to that stuff. I mean, I have such vivid memories of hearing Freddie Hart, Easy Loving on the radio and Stand By Your Man. And, those 60s songs are just so ingrained in my brain. Yes. And I think of my dad whenever I still hear that stuff. My dad's favorite artist was Merle Haggard, and he still is mine when you get to real country.
He's the greatest.
Yeah. And, in his day, nobody wrote him or sang him any better than Merle, man. My very first concert where I went with my father, just he and I, was a Merle Haggard show. It was at the Municipal Auditorium, New Orleans, 1972, I believe. And I remember it was raining like hell. There was a flood in New Orleans that night. And in fact, the show was recorded as an album. And the album, Merle Haggard's album, is called I Love Dixie Blues, so I recorded live in New Orleans. And we were, at that show.
Yeah.
And I have the album, and it's great to listen to it because, man, I'm 12 years old again.
Yeah, you're right there.
Right there, sitting next to my old man. And he was a guy that never really was very emotive, at least as he got older, he got mushy. But at that time, he's probably 30, maybe almost 40 at that time. And he was a guy that just really didn't show any emotion, whether it be excitement, sadness. I mean, he was just, very even keeled.
Right.
And I remember being so just kind of surprised that my dad actually kind of hooped and hollered during that Merle Haggard show,
Yeah.
It's like, wow, who is this guy, But so anyway, the Hag has a real special place in my heart for a number of reasons. First of all, I loved him as an artist, but, it was my dad's guy, Well,
I understand. It's like when I think the one time when I really knew my dad was popular with, the listening audience out there, Roy Clark was doing a show in Wichita, Kansas. And I think we had all been out to eat, the whole family. And we go to Roy's show, and we're backstage. And Roy goes, I have a special friend here backstage that I want to bring him out. said, everybody give a big hand for Max Sanders. And he comes out, and I'm backstage watching this, and the audience just goes nuts.
Oh.
And I said, man, that's my pop.
Well, yeah,
You know?
up until then, he'd just been dad. But then I guess it dawned on you, wow, dad is somebody.
Yeah, Dad, people know who he is. And they like him.
That's
you know?
cool.
Of course, that changed later on. But
Now, you said your mom was an act too.
Yeah, she was.
Were they kind of a duet in a sense? Or,
sometimes they were. In fact, there's a real old, one of the first places they started was a radio station called KMA. It was in
was that in Iowa?
Shenandoah, Iowa.
Yeah, I remember that station.
Yeah, that's where the Everly Brothers started.
Yeah, that's a clear channel. I mean, clear channel, not ownership clear channel, but that was a clear channel AM, right?
Yeah,
kind of like WSM.
Yeah, it really was. And they actually did some shows with Ike and Margaret Everly and Don and Phil. And anyway, Dad and Mom did. There's a record you can hear. You can find it on YouTube. It's called "Can My Pony Make It to Heaven?" Something like that. And Mom sings in it, and Dad does the recitation in the middle of it.
Yeah, neat.
Yes, but yeah, they did sing together some, not a lot. But but they were also very competitive. And when Mother got signed to Decca Records in the 50s, and the Wilburn brothers were going to take her on tour with them, and she did do a few shows with them, Dad got jealous. And Dad, being the salesman he was, talked her out of being an artist.
Interesting.
Yeah, because he said, what about the children? He used us as
yeah. And for most moms, that's going to get them.
Yeah,
right?
and it did.
Yeah.
But what was sad, it really destroyed Mother. I mean, it was sad. But Dad always kind of had that, I love my father, but he wanted to be the king of everything. He wanted to be the center of attention. He wanted all the notoriety. So yeah, if anybody in the family started getting any kind of, you're starting to get attention, he would kind of derail it.
Really?
Yeah,
I mean, even if that were with you, I mean, most parents, I mean, they rejoice in their children doing well or,
he did later. He did later on because my sister, he was very proud of her working the music business. And he was very proud of, probably the proudest he was of me was whenever I joined Phil Valentine's show.
Oh, yeah.
He loved that show.
Yeah, that's nice.
And he would always tell me, man, you had a lot to that show. He's doing a great job.
Well, Jim.
But that's what got us into this was Jim.
Right.
Because he sent us that tribute that he had put together, his family had put together for his dad,
right,
when he passed away, and that's what kind of got us into
discussing just the whole father relationships that we all have. Because Johnny, as you mentioned, Jim had sent us just a touching video tribute. Your father sadly passed away at a very young age, right?
64.
Oh man,
it's almost 20 years ago.
Yeah,
2006.
And while and Johnny and I, our fathers have passed as well. And no matter how long ago it was, it's still.
Oh, it sticks with you.
Yeah. And, I know for me, when my dad passed, and he passed so suddenly, he just literally fell dead with a pulmonary embolism, just like he was there and then he wasn't.
And same with me, buddy.
It took a while for me to even be able to say his name without breaking, without choking up. And I guess, 20 years later, with that video tribute you did, I'm sure you watched that and it still gets to you.
I produced it.
Yeah.
And I remember even when I started putting the pictures together on the video timeline, once you start putting music together, oh my God. The waterworks.
The music in conjunction with the visuals just really, that brings such emotion, doesn't it?
Yeah. It was one of those things that, that was a compulsion. I felt like, dare I say, God kind of compelled me to do that. Like I felt like I needed, it was therapeutic.
Of course.
And everybody, I guess, who saw it, they really loved it. All the the families and stuff like that, and we're glad we still have it and to look at and everything. But my mother passed in February of this year, and didn't have the same compulsion. You know, and it not that I didn't love my mom, but it was a vastly different relationship.
Right.
And I think at least among sons, it is, and perhaps with daughters too, but there is such a different relationship between dads and their sons.
It was night and day
compared to dads and moms.
Yeah.
You know,
it was night and day.
Well, I think we want our father's approval, number one, and when we get that, it just, I don't know. I remember the first time I noticed that Dad was proud of the work I was doing on the radio was with Phil Valentine's show. He came to town, and when I drove to my apartment, I saw his car there. And as I pull in, he's sitting in a chair with the radio blasting outside. And the radio's real loud.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, what are you doing, old man? But he was just that proud. And to feel that, in fact, after he died, I was asked to move his car because it was at my sister's house. When my son and I got into the car, I started it up. The radio was full blast on the radio station we were on. It was on WLAC. I thought he was listening to us when he came into town.
Mm-hmm.
So that got to me.
Yeah. And it's interesting how just the small little things like that can just bring emotions rushing back to you. You know, but Jim, I mean, for this podcast, I think we'd love for you to include that video.
Sure, absolutely, be happy to.
You know, perhaps at the tail end of things.
Well, it touched, and we didn't even know Jim's father.
Didn't know the man. But one thing we did, and you and I both said it, Johnny, was this man, James McCarthy, he is the clone.
Boy, he is.
Of his father. Oh, my gosh. So what was your dad's name?
Justin J. McCarthy.
Oh, that's a good name.
Yeah. J.J. McCarthy.
That's right.
Boy, there's a radio name.
That is a radio name.
I think he was very proud of, my brother and I definitely, but his attitude was, I got to be your dad. I got to be there was the directionality came from him to us. He always used to tell us, man, I'll never be afraid to hug and kiss you, my boys, and tell you that I love you. And of course, to us, we were always like, yeah, and you're our dad, of course, Right. That was because he never heard it.
No, in fact, that's what my dad did too. My dad told me that his father never showed love,
affection,
and anything like that. But Dad was very free of saying I love you, and I mean, my dad had his faults. I mean, he had a wandering eye. Of course, a lot of the guys back then did. Because he hung out with Carl Smith and all these Jimmy Dean, all these people that were skirt chasers, and Dad was one too. I still remember there was a girl that did a morning show on another radio station in Wichita. She was very attractive. And, I had no idea what was going on, but apparently Dad was seeing her on the side. And I went to Dad's station, and she and her on-air partner were there. And all of a sudden, I'm introduced to these two, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, I listen to these two guys. And she was gorgeous, but all of a sudden, when I'm introduced, she goes, "You're John," and she pulls me up, and I'm right in the middle of her breast, just
motorboating action.
Yeah, I'm thinking, what's this about?
Well, they built for leisure or built for sport?
I think both. But so that was my first inkling. Later on, I figured out, that's why she was so anxious to meet me. But
my father, again, as I mentioned earlier, he was never really one to show any kind of emotion, even though I grew up an only child. And I know that, I was the apple of Dad's eye. There was no doubt about that. My mom had some medical issues and was not able to have children after having me, which, as my dad said, my mom is 100% Italian, came from the big Italian family. And, it was important to her to have a whole herd of kids.
Yes.
And of course, that was not possible for her. And my dad had said that after she was no longer able to have children, that she was never the same, that she was just, destroyed in some ways by that. But again, it wasn't until my dad got older and I was an adult where he became, Joe Mushy and, I love you and all this stuff and proud of you and all. But growing up, I never really got that. But he was one of those. Matter of fact, you mentioned Cats in the Cradle, the Harry Chapin tune.
Yes.
that was kind of a song between us because he recognized himself in that song because he was that way. Because he worked like a fiend.
Yes. Let me ask you though, because I kind of see that with my kids. My kids see me work because I have to.
Mm-hmm.
What choice do you have? You try to strike the work-life balance as best you can, but they see me, be with their mother and love their mother as well as work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And there was no doubt that my mom and dad. I mean, heck, they were married over 50 years. Until his death. But the affection that he showed me again just really wasn't there when I was. He was just again one of those guys. I wouldn't see him in the morning because he had already left, and he'd get back 8, 9, 10 at night. Oh, one of those guys.
Well, my dad was
workaholic.
My dad was the same way. He a lot of times too. He was out of town for a long time. I mean, he was out of town a lot because he owned radio stations everywhere, and there'd be a lot of times I wouldn't see him. The only bad part we had as far as father and son relationship was after my mother died, because I really, it was a bad time because I did not have any adult supervision. When my mother died, I was about a month away from turning 16. And when my mother died, my dad, it's almost like he lost his mind. He reverted back to being a teenager. He was gone all the time. He was coming to Nashville a lot, and he'd grown his hair out like a beetle. I mean,
do you think he was? I mean, do you think he was depressed?
I think
you think there was some depression going on there?
There's a lot of things I've learned later on. My mother's death wasn't quite what I thought it was. I think he had I think there was some depression. I think he felt some guilt, and I think it was hard for him to be around us at that time, the kids, because I think he felt some guilt, but it was a bad time to be doing that because I was wide open. I mean, 16 years old.
Now, you had older sisters that were they still at home?
No, they were. Well, one was living there, but she was an adult at the time. See, there's like 8 years difference between my youngest sister and me. So I was kind of I was an accident. They were planned. I was not. I just happened to come along. But he just I think there was depression. I think there was some guilt. And for a long time, he and I did not really have a good relationship, didn't see eye to eye. The only plus there was that I'd gotten into country music, and that thrilled him because I was listening to a Waylon Jennings, my first Waylon Jennings album I bought. I remember I was in my room listening to it. I think I was 15. And man, he burst into the room. He said, "What are you listening to?" And I said, "I'm listening to Waylon Jennings." He said, "I know." He said, "When did this happen?" And I said, "Well, I'm really into his music. I like him." And he just kind of went, "Yes," because he hated my rock music. He hated Jimi Hendrix. He did get into Deep Purple, though.
Well, again, as I mentioned, there's a bond that develops over with a lot of fathers and sons, mothers and their children as well over the music.
Yeah, music does.
Maybe when other things you're not seeing eye to eye on, but if you can come together on maybe one particular artist or a style of music or what have you, that brings families together, man.
Well, that's one thing I always loved, and that's why music's always been real important to me, is that I've seen that music brings people from all different walks of life together. A great example of that was I went to see Steve Earle in concert. And Steve is a very left-leaning kind of guy. He's a socialist. But I'm not, but I went to see him live, and it was sold out. So you had to sit with another couple. And I could tell this couple was probably as left-leaning as Steve was. But we all got along. I didn't go into politics.
Well, no.
And we just had a great conversation. And I thought, this is proof. Music brings people together. People that you would probably not ever see together at any other time. And that's one of the reason music has been such a big thing in my life.
I will admit, and Steve Earle's one of those artists, he will get on stage and blow and go about, a particular politician or an issue that he believes in or doesn't believe. He'll get up there and preach a bit on stage, which always kind of turns me off.
Turns me off too. In fact, that's why I don't go to his concerts anymore.
But I will say the last time I saw him, he didn't do that.
Did he not?
No, but, again, Steve is, I consider him a friend, working with him at MCA all those years ago and still go to his shows, visit with him backstage, that kind of thing. And we've never talked politics or any of that.
Right.
I
love his music, man.
Because it's just not necessary.
No.
But, Jim, you mentioned, again, your father passing at such a young age. How old were you when he passed?
I was 31.
Okay, so you were indeed an adult, but still a fairly young man. I mean, what did he do for a living?
He was a phone guy.
Yeah.
So I learned that trade growing up, pulling wires in office buildings and all that fun stuff. So never really in the entertainment area. My brother and I were both musically inclined. He was not. I think he lived vicariously through us with that, But he was a phone. He worked for New York Tel in his formative years, and when the PBX revolution happened in the 80s and 70s, he was at the forefront of that and put a bunch of phone systems in businesses and supported the family. I mean, we had a very decent upbringing. We had a lot of the toys and stuff like that, but he was always there for us, man. Always wanted to do things with us, fishing, camping. Building stuff with us. He built me a go-kart once. All sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Well, again, now that we're parents, and it's so true, the best thing you can do for your kids is to be there for them and give them of your time.
Yeah.
Because that's the stuff you remember. The fact that he gave you a G.I. Joe when you were 10, big deal. It's those memories of fishing trips, the things, that you recall. Like I say, the story about going to the Merle Haggard show with him. That's a cherished memory.
Do you remember your first conversation where you had a really adult conversation with him? Like where you talked about certain things you did in your youth and he started talking about the stuff he did in his?
Yes.
Because that was one of the last conversations I had with my dad.
In fact, I remember when my youngest son was born, I remember really kind of apologizing to Dad for things I'd put him through when I was, because I was wild. And like I said, didn't have any parental, and probably shouldn't have been apologizing. It wasn't all my fault.
Right.
But I did apologize to him for some of the wild things I did. But we did have some very adult conversations, especially when we were selling radio together, because we'd be in the car together and talk about, life, women.
You become two dudes.
Yeah, well, you do.
Yeah. Just two dudes having a conversation.
Yeah, they almost became, after being at such odds when I was younger, when I got older, we actually started becoming like friends, buddies,
There's, events in my teenage years that have happened that you think, oh, they don't know about that. And you come to find out, oh, yeah.
They knew all along. Well, my dad told me one time, he said, what did he say? Oh, yeah. He said, well, I knew you were smoking pot back then because he said, I found it in the back of your amplifier.
What are you doing looking in the back of my amplifier?
Yeah, I never knew, Dad. I thought I was being pretty cagey.
No, that's probably where he hid his, right?
Yeah, okay. or he saw other people doing it.
My mom was a lifelong smoker. And by proxy, I became one and, started bumming cigarettes from her and whether she knew it or not. And I used to go to the mall. I was a mall rat. I had the mullet and I had the long trench coat, before they were vilified.
Yeah.
And, this is back when you could smoke in the mall in the food court. Mm-hmm. And my mom was opposite my dad where everything was, well, you made me a mother and you were my entertainment. Ever see, what I'm saying? The language is all about, this is what you did for me.
Yeah.
My dad was more, I got to do this. You made me, I got to be your dad, But anyway, so my mom was a little bit more of an emotionally charged human being. Mm-hmm. And my father and mother must have come to the mall one night, unbeknownst to me. And I guess they stuck around after dropping me off, saw me from afar smoking with my friends in the food court. And he made his way all the way around. And my friend, I had my back to him as he was walking up behind me. And this girl that I was talking to, she was kind of doing one of these, like looking at me, and then all of a sudden her gaze, her eye line started rising. My father was coming into view, and you could see the look on her face of, shoot. and I'm looking at her going, what's going on? And he, in my ear, and he go, got a light? Yeah. Oh man, that's Dad. And I look up and he goes, let's go. And they're both from New York,
Yeah.
So he's just sitting there, he's like, whatever, man. My mother, on the other hand, with a cigarette in her hand.
Yes.
What do you think you're cool, huh? You think you're cool? Smoking with your friends in the mall? You think it? And I'm going, do you not see yourself
role
right
model,
now?
Role model.
Oh my God.
Where do you think I got it, Mother? Well, I remember my dad, because, he, since it was radio, he could trade out a lot of things. And
radio.
When I got into, plus Dad, to be quite honest, he would buy us kids things because it would keep us in our room, because Dad didn't like to be bothered.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't like company coming. Like even when family would come and stay, about after one day, he'd be going to my mother, when are they going to leave?
Yeah.
But anyway, I got into motorcycles, and I got into motocross, the off-road. And there was a place like next to it, because we were kind of out in the country in Kansas. And there was a place where we kind of made a trail where we could do some jumping and all that stuff. And I guess Dad watched me. I had no idea he knew. But he said, I used to watch you back in those days. He said, man, you were really good.
Mm.
He said, you concerned me, but he said, I couldn't believe how high you were jumping. And I said, oh yeah, I was. In fact, I would sneak out with a friend. I would actually go down to, they used to have motocross races about 7 miles south of us. And I would take my motorcycle down there, sneak off. And I would try to race these guys. And these were professionals. I mean, these guys were doing it every weekend. And after one time I got out there, I beat everybody that was practicing. And one of the guys came up to me and said, kid, he said, you ought to get out here and, race professionally. And I said, you think so? And he said, oh yeah, man. He said, you're really good. So I got a friend of mine, and I made a plan. We're going to go to the motocross races. I'm going to race. And I went down, and I was signing up, and they said, well, how old are you? And I said, 13. Well, you're going to need a parent's signature. And I went, uh-oh. Well,
that's the end of that.
That's the end of that dream. So I just drove my bike, but I never got caught. I'm surprised there was never a highway patrolman. I shouldn't have been. I mean, these were major roads.
Yeah.
I'm riding my motorcycle on.
The good old days.
What a brave little SOB I was.
It's described part of my childhood, man.
Yeah.
That's what I used to do too.
I never did any, I guess I was a good kid. I never really did anything untowardly,
Well, you have that's why it surprised us that you in an earlier episode, you were talking about kind of losing it at a radio station.
Yeah.
We can't picture you doing that.
I never did sneak out of that. Well, I did sneak out of the house a few times when I was about 15 or 16 and my parents were gone. And I didn't have a driver's license yet. In Louisiana, then, you could have a driver's license at 15. And I did get one ultimately at 15, so I must have been about 14 or so. But I could drive, and my parents, they left a car at the house.
Oh.
They would go out and on another vehicle. And there were some times where, I jumped in the Cutlass Supreme and did a little cruising. I had no license. I had certainly no insurance.
You outlaw.
Yeah, man.
Rebel.
Yeah. And I think back on that, on how stupid that was. But, you ain't thinking with,
no.
At least the correct part of your anatomy when you're 14 or 15.
No,
you're out looking for chicks,
Yeah.
So, man, here I am in this cool 1975 Cutlass Supreme, and out there looking for the babes. And I remember that I had a guy clip me on, this was New Orleans. I had a guy that was like turning in a turn lane. Anyway, he clipped that car. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But he got out and he's like, well, no damage to your car. Are you okay? Yeah. I mean, everything's cool. Yeah. No problem, buddy. Yeah.
Everything's good.
Yeah, man. Hey, thanks for, for checking. But really, I mean, that's really the only kind of thing I did. I was, National Honor Society, editor of the paper, played on the baseball. I mean, I was one of these good kids,
Yeah.
And I never would. And of course, my dad was one of those that when I was little, he would probably, and I know there are some that will say this sounds like he was some sort of beast, and he was not. He was just raised in a time when, grew up in Oklahoma, rural Oklahoma. He was born in 1934, so in the 40s and, late 40s is when he was growing up. I mean, they had no electricity. I mean, he grew up in that kind of time.
Right.
And his the discipline that he faced was his mother telling him to go get a switch off the peach tree.
Oh yeah, they all did that. Yeah.
And he still had scars on his back from the peach tree limbs when he was an adult. So his way of disciplining. I mean, he never beat me with a peach tree limb, but his belt and I became quite acquainted when I was little.
Yeah.
And, I bruise real easily. And, I'd go to school with shorts on and my legs were black.
Oh, yeah.
And,
but that's the way it was back then.
Now he would be thrown in he'd be thrown in jail.
Oh, yeah.
Or DCS would, have taken me from, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I was, I certainly didn't enjoy getting my butt whipped, but I knew that's just the way he was raised, and later on, I mean, he stopped, whipping me when I was like 8 or 9 years old. But I respected my father so much, and I guess you could say, yeah, sure, you went driving a vehicle without anybody knowing about it while you're underage. But in terms of being a good kid, there was no way in hell I was going to disappoint either parent, but especially my father. You talk about wanting your dad's approval kind of thing. Yeah, man. I can certainly relate to that. And I remember I had a real good heart to heart when the night of my high school graduation, which ironically, the graduation ceremony, this was Holy Cross High School, New Orleans, 1979, May 15th. The graduation took place at the Municipal Auditorium, the same place where that Haggard show was, where he and I went to when I was about 12 years old. And out in the parking lot after graduation, he looked at me and he said, I'm so proud of you. You've always done things right. You're a great son.
Wow.
And that was
that
just
makes you feel about that.
Yeah,
tall.
that was and that was so out of character for him to just to verbalize things. He was one of those guys that showed his love by actions more than words. And because he would take me everywhere when I was little. We go bird hunting. We raised bird dogs when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. And he would take me hunting with him, and a buddy of his would, he and a buddy, and they would take me along. A lot of dads would look at that as an occasion to get rid of their kids. Just me and go pal around with the guys.
Yeah,
he wasn't that way. He brought me everywhere, and probably to the consternation of some of his buddies, like dragging this kid along. We go fishing out South Louisiana. And I would go with him. And I know there was one fishing buddy of his who was actually his boss, who I could tell really didn't like having the kid along. But my dad was like, well, shoot, you want me to go? You're going to have to have my son along with you.
Good for your
dad. He always did bring me along. When my dad passed, again, I mentioned that, he just died of August 1st of 2011. I get the call from my mom, your dad has collapsed. He's in the hospital. And a couple hours later, she called me to tell me he had passed. But pulmonary embolism. But I gave the eulogy. As an only child, I don't know. You talk about how you kind of had this thing from God telling you to put that video together. I just felt compelled that there's nobody else that could do the eulogy for him other than me.
Well, I had
it was just something I had to do.
Well, see, I had much the same experience. In fact, when Jim was saying it was like a God thing, that when my father died, he had come to Nashville. It was not a planned visit. It was kind of all of a sudden. And he was staying with my sister. Now, I have really bad allergies to animal dander. My sister had cats and dogs in the house. And so what was supposed to happen was that he was going to go to my sister's house first, and then come to our house the next day. And the Saturday that he died, which was October 11th, 2003, I was going to go with my then wife to a friend's house. At the very last minute, and I think this was a God thing. I think this was God sending me there. Mm-hmm. I looked at my wife at the time and I said, if you don't mind, I think I'm going to go to my sister's because my dad is 80 years old. I don't know how much time he's got left. I said, do you understand? She goes, totally. I said, she goes, I'll let them know. And so I went to my sister's house, and usually I wouldn't because I couldn't hardly stay in there because I'd start wheezing and, getting the asthma and end up in the hospital or something. But I took my son with me because I was taking him home anyway. And we spent time with our dad. And the strange thing about it was he always said, when I die, I want to die watching Alabama football, eating ice cream with my family around me. And that's what was interesting about this visit was that they were watching football. We go there. My sister and my son went to go get ice cream. And so that gave my dad and I some time alone. And it was the closest, probably the most heartfelt conversation we'd ever had. We were talking about, he's telling me how proud he was of my work in radio. And I said, well, Dad, I'm very proud of what you've done. And he said, because Johnny Cash had just passed away and Waylon had died a year before.
Yeah, in February.
Yeah. And Johnny Cash had just died a month before in September. And he said, do you miss those guys? And I said, oh man, I miss them so much. I said, world just doesn't seem as magical without them. And he said, son, that's why you've got to, you really need to cherish every moment because he said, you never know when you're going to go. And then 10 minutes later, with they come back with the ice cream and my sister, my dad and I were all eating ice cream. So my son and I go outside because I got to get away from the animals for a while. Mm-hmm. And I heard my sister scream, which was nothing abnormal because she screamed at Alabama football all the time anyway. And I was joking with my son. I said, Janet really gets into that football, man. And all of a sudden she came to the screen door and I could tell something was wrong. And I said, what's up? And she says, Dad, said something's wrong. And as I went inside, and like I'm saying, this is only 10 minutes after he and I had that conversation. He was just laying there in the chair and ice cream in his lap. And I knew he was gone. I mean, I even heard the last breath as that breath they tend to take after they pass away. But that was, and I thought that had to be a God thing. God sent me there.
It's almost like he said what he had to say.
Yes.
And his life was complete.
Yes.
In some way. And
he knew it was coming.
It was time to go to the next life, man.
Well, it did. And plus I thought, I've told people, I said, the good Lord loved him somehow because he got everything he wanted. He wanted to go quick. He wanted to do it watching football and eating ice cream. Wow. So he got it.
Yeah.
And like you, I did the eulogy at his
one of the hardest things I ever did, man.
It was hard.
And for me, and of course the suddenness of it all and trying to gather your thoughts to put together the words was difficult for me. I put together that eulogy in stages. Because there's just so many emotions and so many memories and so many thoughts coming that just bombard you at a time like that. and trying to just focus to where you can express things. And of course, it's impossible to express everything you want to express
Right.
at a eulogy. Speaking in front of family and friends. I remember my dad always said that when his parents passed, or he had a sister that passed before he did, he said he always wanted to get up and say a few words at funerals and things, but
Yes.
he just couldn't. He said, speaking in front of family and friends, I just can't do it. I can't compose myself. I can't stay composed. So I kind of knew what he meant, but I was able to kind of gather my thoughts. I mean, I did break down, a few times during the course of it, but I felt like it was something I had to do. And I was proud of the fact that I did it. I felt like, again, talking about getting approval, man,
Yeah.
and I
Exactly.
felt like when I was all said and done with that he approved,
Yeah.
so,
I'm sure he did.
yeah. So, I mean, again, you lost your dad. Was it sudden when he
No.
passed at 64?
We kind of had a little bit of a ramp down period. I mean, he retired, semi-retired, I guess. Got a taste of that life and, quickly went back to keeping himself busy with handyman work around his neighborhood. And then that's what exposed he had a back issue. He hurt his back, went to the hospital, and then all of a sudden discovered he had a multiple myeloma. And
Wow.
just, that's what, that was in 02 or 03. So there was a time where he was just dealing with all the treatments and all that stuff. And that's, right after we had my first child, or leading up to it, he says, yeah, I'm going to stop all the treatments. And my wife she used to be a home health aide in hospice. So for my birthday that year, my daughter just turned 3. No, she was about a month old at that point. So we went down to go see him for my birthday, and my wife knows the signs, and she could see the writing on the wall. He was about to go on a big trip to Alaska, and like a dream trip, fishing, cruise, the whole 9 yards.
Mhm.
My mom, being how she was, and seeing his condition, she's like, I'm not going with you. If you want to go, you got to figure something out. And he's like, screw it. So my brother actually hung up his situation with being an attorney and said, I'll take you on the trip. So that was about 2 weeks away from when we saw him. And my wife, we go down there. We were the whole family was together. And my wife looks at me and she goes, he doesn't need to be going on this trip. He's knocking at the door. And I said, you tell him that.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't too far after that. That was around August 20th on my birthday, and September 11th, 2006.
Wow.
He wanted us to remember him, man. September 11th.
My mom passed on September 11th
Crazy.
of
Wow.
2015.
Mm.
Yeah. I was on the air in Charleston, South Carolina, doing a morning show, news talk morning show. And my cousin, my mom had leukemia, and she was like, she said, I've had it with the treatments.
Yeah.
She did that too. It was like 5 years after my dad passed, she had it.
Yeah.
And so I had a cousin that was staying with her. She was kind of on a home hospice situation. But my cousin texted me when I'm on the air. Well, your mom has passed.
Oh, man.
Yeah, my cousin, she went and checked on my mom, who was in a hospital bed in the living room, and said, yeah, she's dead. So, got that. You talk about how your dad, I guess, kind of did the handyman stuff, the retiree handyman kind of thing. My dad was the same way. He was a very good woodworker. He made a lot of furniture and stuff. I've got quite a few pieces in my home that he built. He also built like little music boxes, very ornate little jewelry boxes and music boxes for my daughter and my wife. I mean, they're prized possessions now. But when he passed, he had my mom and dad lived in a neighborhood in suburban Houston, and kind of an older neighborhood, settled, nice houses. And my dad, it was a neighborhood of kind of retirees, older folks, kind of like them.
Yeah.
And they were friends with everybody up and down that block. And after my dad passed, a lot of them came to the funeral, came to the service. And it didn't surprise me, but just about, and I'm talking 7 or 8 people came up to me and said how he had made them furniture and given it to them. I mean, like china closets and cedar chests and all these kinds of things. He made furniture for everybody in that neighborhood.
Wow.
And as a gift to give to them. And they all talked about how those were just cherished things, that my dad was such a good guy and gave of himself. Again, that was my old man. He showed friendship and affection by actions.
Well,
and that was his way, was just to make stuff for you or do things. I mean, he was a guy in the family that everybody, he was a mechanic he was a mechanic by trade, and bitched and fussed about today's cars because you need a goddamn computer to do anything,
And he's right.
But if anybody had a car breakdown in the family, it was, go to Uncle Lawrence, and he was the guy that was Mr. Fix-It, And when he would come to visit me, here in Nashville, when we lived here the first time, if there were little things that needed fixing, or, hey, boy, he was the one that, you don't need to call anybody. Hell, I'll do that.
Yeah.
He re-roofed my house with my son. My son was like 7 or 8 years old. And, he's out there. Hell, that's when we discovered he had a heart issue.
Yeah.
Because, he was getting winded by doing that. Man, right. I don't know. Having a little shortness of breath. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, he finally got checked out, had a quintuple bypass.
Wow.
But
it's a widowmaker.
Yeah. Added 7 years to his life though, with the bypass before he was 70 or 69 when he had that.
Wow.
But anyway, he was one of those guys that showed affection, but it was, a little different as opposed to verbally expressing it, at least until he got older anyway.
Well, it's interesting because I was just thinking about my dad too, when he when he passed, we learned, what he was like in Hot Springs. That's where he was last living, was Hot Springs, Arkansas. He had a little radio station there. Still on the air at 80 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But what was interesting, we come up to the radio station, and on the outside of the station, listeners had made a wreath, and it said, "We are going to miss you. Rest in peace."
Yeah, that's nice.
And man, touched us. And then the guy that he leased the land from, it was an old man that had several heart, bypass, several heart surgeries. Dad would not allow the man to push mow his own yard. Dad did it for him. But the thing was, Dad had a bad heart too, because when he was 70, he had open heart surgery. He was 99% blocked everywhere. And what was weird about him, they started telling, he was getting ready for the surgery, and they had him all the stickers on him and everything. When they started telling him what recovery would be like, bloop, bloop, bloop. Yeah, I can't do it. Got too much to do. Got too much business to do. And he wasn't going to go back in for the surgery until his doctor told him, he said, "I'm not going to be your doctor anymore." Because he said, "You're going to die. If you do not get this surgery done," he said, "I will refuse to see you anymore. I'm not going to be responsible for you leaving the planet." So Dad gets this open heart surgery. When I go see him, it's like a day after he's had the surgery. And there are all these pizza boxes all over the... And I said, "Wow, who had pizza?" He said, "Hell, I did." And I said, "Do you not realize that's what brought you in here?" And he goes, "I don't care." He said, "I'm 70 years old." He said, "If you think I'm going to eat bland food at this point in my life," he said, "you're out of your mind." And I said, "I can't argue."
Tofu and salads weren't going to cut it.
No, and they didn't. He kept...
I'm guessing he was a smoker like so many people.
No.
He was not.
He was not a smoker.
Interesting. So
He
many
did not
people
smoke.
from those generations, because I smoked, in my radio. I've been quit.
Oh, yeah.
I've been quit almost 40 years. So,
Yeah.
But, so many of us radio guys, everybody smoked.
Well, that's why
in
he
radio.
gave me such a hard time when I did smoke. He said, "You already," and plus my mother smoked. You talking about your mother. My mother did it just to make my dad angry because he hated it. So the whole time she was pregnant with me, she smoked like a chimney.
Me too.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, my mom never did touch the things.
Wow.
But our relationships with our fathers, kind of can be complicated. We've all had We all, for the most part, though, I think we can agree that they are pleasant memories. And,
They are.
You know, we stop and smile. At least, you know, it took me a little bit. I think I mentioned earlier that, you know, after he passed, I mean, I couldn't even say his name or think about him until, you know, without getting emotional about it. But, you know, after a while, you can just sit back and smile and remember the nice times. And especially as we record this, we're still in the holiday season. And, you know, I think back on the holiday times when you had the families around, and those are such short times. You know, if you stop and think about it, you know, now that I've had kids, my wife and I talk about this all the time. You know, we had Thanksgiving here a few weeks back, and it was just she and I at the table.
Yes.
At the Thanksgiving table.
Same with us.
And there was a time when my mom and dad, my wife's mom and dad, our kids, my wife's brother, I mean, we'd all be together at Thanksgiving. And, but that only happened 3 or 4 times, you know, because they got older, couldn't travel.
Right.
Or my father-in-law, he passed away, you know, so those times when the fathers are around and the families are around, you know, and especially I think back when I was little, and my grandparents were around and all the cousins and all that. And you think that those times are going to last forever. And they're so quick. They're so fleeting. They don't last.
No, they don't.
I guess what I'm getting at is the times with your dads and your moms too, for that matter, and your grandparents, man, treasure them, cherish them, because they don't last and they go by quickly.
Well, one thing that's bothering me right now is that so many of this new generation, I see them shutting their parents out totally. And I don't understand that. I understand maybe that you have problems or you know, there's difficulties in your relationships, but don't, unless your parents are abusers, I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just have a difference of opinion or whatever, that doesn't mean you cut your parents off.
Yeah. I've never seen the separation we have seen of families over the political climate these days. I've never seen such division in families like you do currently. And that is,
well, we're experiencing
that's
that.
regrettable. I come to think that ultimately families are going to regret that. I would certainly hope so. Like, we let the opinions of on a political ideology separate us from our blood, from our families, keep our grandchildren away from their grandparents over it.
I mean, over politicians, the worst people on the planet.
I know. Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Well, it's
ridiculous.
It's like I told one family member, I said, you're going to end a relationship over, you know, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton? I mean, come on. They're worth ending a relationship over? No, they're not.
Well, again, we have fond memories of our dads. And,
yes, we do.
You know, we hope that you know, those of us that are viewing and listening to us here, you know, if you've got some sort of issue with dad, you know, gosh darn it, hopefully you can make amends at some point.
Work it out.
I'm taken to that final scene of the movie Home Alone.
Yes.
Where the next door neighbor to Kevin,
yes,
finally makes that phone call to his son. And they're able to make amends and get back together. You know, that kind of really was kind of made the movie for me in a lot of ways.
It did me too. And, you know, life's too short. Life's too short to destroy a relationship like that.
Well, we certainly appreciate everybody checking in with us on Circling the Drain. It's been an honor for John, Jim, and myself to join you every week. And we wish you nothing but the best. We certainly hope that you'll continue to like, follow, share the podcast on whatever platform you may be viewing and or listening on. And you may see that I have a Circling the Drain t-shirt on.
Boy, I like the looks of that.
Yeah, you can find it at circlingthedrain.net. And
I'd like to have one, Jim.
well, heck, you know what? I know people. I can make that happen.
Thank you.
Well, and we've got mugs coming and hats and all kinds of fun stuff. So again, for Jim and Johnny B, we'll hope you join us next time on Circling the Drain.